Alright, hello YouTube. Welcome to another LoreStream. It's Transformer Tuesday, so we're taking another dive down the neon-laced rabbit hole of Cybertron. Welcome everybody who's already shown up here. I see Spencer, God's Rider, Big Smoke himself, Nerd in the Box. What's up, stranger? Kelvin, Soundwave, hello, Omegas. Your favorite show. Yeah, Transformers Prime was awesome. So we are definitely going to spend a good bit of time talking about this. I'm probably going to end up dividing it into not only this stream, but into the next stream as well. Plus, I've got a little bit something special to talk to you guys about regarding Transformers Prime. There's a fan project called Galvatron's Revenge. It's been out there. It's been in the makes for like years. They've been working on it since basically the show ended. But the guys behind the scenes are like really trying to make it look like the show. They're working in Blender with 3D animation, trying to make it look as close as they possibly can get it to the show. And I happen to voice a handful of characters in that. So I've got some behind the scenes stuff we can talk about. We can watch some clips, react to them, talk about them. I think it'll be a fun way to tie up this whole series once we're done talking about Transformers Prime, the series proper. So thank you everyone for being here, and please hit the like button if you enjoy the Transformer Tuesday streams. They seem to be one of my more popular ones, and I do enjoy talking about the robots in disguise. Hey TTMO, what's up, man? How are the veggie wraps, man? You're gonna that's my boy TTMO. He does veggie wraps. Check out his channel. They're great.
Enough about vegetables, let's talk about me. 'Cause this show is called Transformers Prime, so I want to hear all about Prime.
He would, too. Even though you came later, your design came from Cyberverse Angry Prime, so you get out of here. You get out of here. We're not talking about you today. This was the design of Optimus in Transformers Prime.
Ooh, that's sleek and kind of sexy. I'm looking pretty good if I do say so myself.
I don't think anybody's shocked there, Optimus. Yeah, the Transformers Prime Optimus design was a thing of beauty, is a thing of beauty. In the era of Bayverse, you know, since 2007, whenever the first live action movie came out, a lot of the designs for Optimus have been forever altered by that. It's kind of like when you watch the live action Marvel movies, the MCU, and then you go back and look at some of the recent merchandise for characters who have a well-established look from the comics. Well, now they start to look like they do in the movies, which is really weird because the movies are based on the comics and now the comics are based on the movies. So really bizarre, really bizarre. But the reason I mention that is because with the Bayverse, they started always making him a long-nosed truck. And now I know this was a long-nosed truck too, but that's okay. That's not the main problem. The main problem was they started making him a long-nosed truck, and it was those stupid flames. In every movie, he had the dumb flames. I'm not a big fan of the flames on Optimus. I prefer the solid colors on just about any Transformer. Of course, you can have stripes, faction symbols, little details here and there, but stuff like flames, where that feels like a very human characteristic to me, unless the character has the Cybertronian themselves have something to do with fire. What was that one Fembot? Flame War? I mean, it's in her name. So if she's going to have little flame decals on her, okay, that's one thing. But why does Optimus have fire? So in an era of Bayverse, in an era of when we're getting all these long-nosed truck Optimus with flames all over him, looking like a pile of parts, it was so refreshing to see solid blue, red, solid blue, solid red, with no extra decals, details, anything like that. And despite him having the more modern look of the separate parts, you see a lot more segments, pieces of armor, plates, and all those kind of things. It's nowhere near the mess that the Bayverse, and I'm not trying to hate on the Bayverse movies. They're fine, and if you're a fan of them, that's great. I'm not trying to hate on them. I'm not trying to say that they're terrible. It's just from a design standpoint, and I think a lot of Transformers fans tend to agree when it comes to the design, is that they prefer the blockier, more solid looking, colorful robots, not the messy, bland, just pile of parts kind of look. Like I said, nothing against the Bayverse films, but just personal opinion, I like to be able to tell the proportions, the where one limb ends and the torso or the next limb begins, so to speak. So so this design was a breath of fresh air. Just solid colors, solid plates and paneling, but still modern. Still kept the long nose truck. Nothing wrong with that, right? Still kept the long nose truck design in the vehicle mode, but just felt so much more classic. And he had the faceplate. I know he has the faceplate in the Bayverse films as well, but he tends to take it down a lot. He, only kind of using it in battle, which this one also sort of does, but most of the figures and stuff were sold with the faceplate up, and it was just kind of, when I think of him more with the faceplate than without it, unless I'm thinking of like a meme, like one of his funny faces if you just happen to pause at the right moment. So let me catch up with the chat here, because I'm going off on the design here, rambling. Hey, T Fan Page, what's up, man? I'm glad you could stop by. Yeah, Spencer, Cliffjumper voiced by The Rock. Oh, dude, I haven't even touched on the voice cast yet. I'm just getting into the design. We're just scratching the surface here, buddy. Like I said, we're falling down a neon-laced rabbit hole into Cybertron. I'm just scratching the surface. But yeah, we'll get into the voice cast because it was stellar. It was stellar. You prefer the long nose but hate the flames. Ramworks, right? I'm right there with you. I think that the long nose looks more realistic because that's the type of truck I typically see. I mean, I've seen some flat nose trucks, but I typically see long nose ones. So it feels more real. But yeah, without the flames. Same here. Flames work for Firestorm. Yeah. So you get me, Nerd in a Box. You get me. You've been considering getting more Cyberverse toys, T-Fan Page? I'll tell you something, T-Fan Page. What makes me want to get more Cyberverse toys is that last season. They pulled a TF animated on us. Remember how TF animated, like the first season was kind of slow to go? Like the cool stuff was with Megatron, right? Trying to get his body back. But the rest of it was kind of scheme of the week. And the second season started picking up steam towards the end. And the third season was amazing. And we're all upset that it got canceled. It never got a fourth season. So it's kind of like that with Cyberverse, and it's even making me want to go back and get some of the toys. Hey, Data Links and Gamma. All right. Yeah, you're going to need some coffee. You're going to need some coffee for this.
Oh, what do you mean you're going to need some coffee? What, am I boring you? Is this guy boring? Just look at those beefy arms. I don't miss arm day. I don't care what version of Prime you look at. Never miss arm day.
That's Prime's favorite day, is Arm Day. Arm Day is the best day.
The best.
So yeah, so anyway, the design was perfect, near perfect for this guy. The thighs are a little bit spindly, and it wasn't noticeable in the show, but the figures you could really tell it's like, oh, he's a little bit skinny on the upper legs. Maybe he's been missing leg day. But yeah, great design, great design. So talking about the voices, because Spencer brought that up, how The Rock voiced Cliffjumper. So we had a stellar voice cast in this show. Now, we had been getting a pretty good voice cast in the movies. You know, of course, Peter Cullen was reprising his role as Optimus. And then we had some interesting voice choices for some of the others, because we didn't get Frank Welker for Megatron. We got Hugo Weaving, for instance. You know, so it was really nice to see what felt like, or I think more accurately would say, to hear what felt like a classic cast. Frank Welker reprising his role as Megatron, and of course Peter Cullen back as Optimus. But then even the other voice actors that they brought in felt to me more like a classic voice cast. Because if you go back to G1 and you look at some of the actors there, they were, especially in the movie, especially in the old G1 movie, they were, I don't know if you want to call it stunt casting, because that almost takes away from the performance, makes it sound like they don't give a good performance and only got cast for a stunt. But, you know, stunt casting, like, oh, hey, it's The Rock. It's The Rock, guys. He's not normally voicing in Transformers, but he's here now. It's almost kind of like stunt casting, even though he did a great job, right? So the movie had kind of stunt casting with like Judd Nelson as Hot Rod, you know, and John Machida, or however you say his last name, is Blur. You know, these talents that were known for other things were coming in to voice. You know, Robert Stack as Ultra Magnus. You know, they weren't typically associated with Transformers, much less Saturday morning cartoon type shows, and yet they were brought in to voice these characters, and it kind of got that extra buzz. Leonard Nimoy as Galvatron, right? So it feels like a throwback to that, having people like The Rock, and then Jeffrey Combs as Ratchet, for instance. He's well known in classic horror movies like The Reanimator and From Beyond. And that's when I was like, wait a minute, why do I know that voice? Why do I know Ratchet's voice? Because I've seen all these classic 80s horror movies where he plays some crazy doctor, mad scientist character. So yeah, it was really stellar voice cast. Everyone did a great job. And then even some familiar names that are from within the realm of animated shows, like Steve Bloom as Starscream. You had Steve Bloom as Starscream, who I was actually a bit concerned, not because I don't like Steve Bloom or don't think that he's a good actor, but because I had become so familiar with what I had thought, what I perceived as his range. Steve Bloom voiced Spike Spiegel in Cowboy Bebop. Like that's way back when I first started hearing him, was as Spike Spiegel, and I believe he voiced Vincent Valentine in the Final Fantasy movies, Advent Children, and I think there might have been one other. And so I remember hearing him in anime dubs. And then he took on the role of Wolverine in the recent Marvel animated outings. So I'm like, okay. So he's got that real deep, gruff, like,
let's go, bub. I'm the best in the world at what I do, but what I do isn't very nice.
So I'm like, okay, that's going to be Starscream. And I know that Starscream had a really raspy voice in the Bayverse movies, you know, like,
oh, master, not to call you a coward.
But, you know, this is a different look. This is a more of a classic behavior of Starscream than we got in the movie. So he shouldn't, I don't know, I wanted something different. So I was actually a little concerned, but man, Steve Bloom knocked it out of the park. He showed me that he had range I was not even aware of. Even though I had been watching shows that he'd been in for years, he shows me stuff, you know, I've never heard him do. So quite impressive, all around, very impressive. Robert Stack's Magnus is iconic. That's right, Yama. That's what I'm saying. Like when you know, people like to point out, oh, the Rock was Cliffjumper, and Anytime they bring in someone special like that, Tony Todd. Oh, Tony Todd was Dreadwing, right? He's the Candyman. It's talking about old scary movies, old horror movies like Jeffrey Combs was in. Tony Todd was the Candyman. He was real scary. He had a whole series of movies, and he voiced the Fallen and Revenge of the Fallen. And then he came back to voice Dreadwing in this show. So yeah, it's really cool when you hear that. But it's like, you know what? They kind of have always done that. They've always intertwined other media, brought in actors from other realms outside of animation, maybe from live acting, and musicians, things like that. And that's what I love about Transformers. It brings everything together, right? I know it may sound kind of cheesy, but that's what I love about it. You get all these fans together because they enjoy this mesh of things. You've got robots that turn into vehicles. There's conflict. There's character development, relationships. Then they bring in music. This love of the '80s music, the rock, the sort of electronic sounding music. So there's this huge array of fandoms that it pulls in, because it itself, Transformers itself, mixes things in. Prime felt very much like a return to that, where some of the previous shows, as much as I love Animated, because Animated was a great show, it felt very much like it was standing on its own, just being its own animated, corner of Transformers, whereas Prime felt like an event. Transformers Prime felt like it was bringing in a new era of fandom. It was an event, man. It was an event. If you were there, if you remember, because I know a lot of you were. It felt like an event, and the show was so good. That was the other thing too, is it lived up to the hype. It was so good. Okay, so I've been ranting and raving here. I do want to get into an actual some in depth, some in details things. If I can speak right, I'm getting so hyped, man. I'm getting hyped. This stuff really gets me pumped because I'm a huge fan of Transformers to begin with, but when it's like one of my favorite things, oh man, this is so good. So I want to tell you guys some stuff about it, like some of the details that maybe I can't remember off the top of my head, that I took some notes here. And then I also want to go through each character, because I've got this image of Prime here, but talking about the designs of things, I've got Bumblebee, all the Autobots. I want to go through, kind of talk about each one of them, see what you guys think. It's so far, I'm trying to keep my eye on the chat as best I can, and I'm seeing a lot of positive reactions. So many people saying that they found this to be their favorite show, that it's one of the best, if not the best. Yeah, it's everyone kind of agrees across the board that this is really top of the line, because you had that feeling that I've been describing of all pulling all these fandoms together from like the old show, but then it was executed so well. The animation, the storytelling. If you try to go back and watch G1, it's pretty messy. But this show, this one was so, yeah. Will Friedle as Bumblebee, when Bumblebee finally got to talk. We finally broke that curse. Let's talk about another milestone that this show did. I'm not even really going in order of anything here, I guess. let's just have fun with it. But let's talk about another milestone that this show did, was broke that curse of Bumblebee talking through the radio, or just not talking. Now, the radio thing was clever. Don't get me wrong. When they had the idea of hey, instead of him just having a normal voice, he'll combine sentences or create sentences by combining phrases and words and stuff from other songs and audio clips and sound bites from movies and pop culture and all that. Brilliant, but let me say, it kind of got old fast. And especially at the end of the movie, he got his voice back, and then they decided, no, we're going to stick with it. I guess, I don't know, they thought the gimmick was so good, but it was kind of a one and done thing. And this show started out, at least he wasn't doing radio clips. It was more like these weird little dubstep noises, like R2-D2 with bass boost. It's like R2-D2 went and hung out with Skrillex and came back, and like that's what Bumblebee's voice. So, which is fine. It was better than the radio thing, a little less annoying, but let's all relish in the fact that it broke that curse. He got his voice back, and since then, Bumblebee has been speaking more and more, to the point where even in the most recent live action film, even though it did resort back to him being a radio talker, but at the beginning of the movie we got his voice. He was talking. It was normal. It was all part of the plot that it got ripped out by Blitz, or damaged or whatever, by Blitzwing. So, but in the games that we've had since then, and around this time, because around this time we were getting the War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron games, Bumblebee had his voice in that. So it was really nice, and he had it in Transformers Animated. I guess maybe this didn't break the curse because he had it in Transformers Animated, but Transformers Animated was right on the cusp of the Bayverse movies, and it hadn't fallen under the curse yet. You know what I mean? So it's like you could kind of argue, oh, well, Animated, because it was around, I think it was the same year. But if you think about production schedules, that show was in production basically along the same lines of the movie, and they either didn't know how well the whole radio thing would go over, if they even knew about it at all. That's why I don't really count Animated as being like part of the curse. The curse that we got was like everything after that being Bumblebee talking through the radio and all the movies and spin-offs and stuff, until this show broke that curse. Let's see, the fight choreography. I'm going to catch up with the chat real quick. Yeah, we're all Unicron. That's right. We're all infected. You know, it's like with the plague going on. It's like The Walking Dead, but it's like Unicron at the same time. It's everything. We're all infected. We're all Unicron. The fight choreography was executed very well, and you always enjoyed every fight between Optimus Prime and Lord Megatron. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like the quality level of this show was miles beyond G1 in animation, storytelling, and yeah, the fight choreography. We never got anything like this. Even in Beast War's best moments. Beast War's best moments were good, were really good, don't get me wrong, but didn't have some of the amazing fight scenes that we got in here. Yeah, Bumblebee. So that's what got you hooked, Jazz Wolf Blaze? Awesome. Sorry, I'm skimming over the comments. I'm trying to keep up as best I can as I go on my rants here. My ramblings. Bumblebee was actually going to be Hotshot. Yeah, that's a good point, Lugnut. That's actually a good point.
The grand and glorious Lugnut makes a grand and glorious point.
That the animated Bumblebee wasn't even originally going to be Bumblebee. Probably one of the reasons why he spoke, because he was originally going to be Hotshot, and then they said, well, no, because we are focusing on Bumblebee in the movie, and you know, if you tie stuff in, we can make more money. Merchandise, got to sell them toys. So yeah, that's why, again, it lends to the whole curse thing not having quite yet started. As Animated escaped that. They were the last show before the curse of the radio voice really started. Arachnid is best waifu. Yeah, I think I might have to agree with you that on Artisan. I like RC. She was awesome in the show. Really cool redesign, you know, typically being the pink sports car, like a sci-fi sports car, because she was from Cybertron. Her vehicle mode looked like it came from Cybertron or some sort of sci-fi influence. But this is a motorcycle, mostly blue, with black as a secondary color and some pink accents. But it worked for her. It was still, you know, slender and feminine. It looked nice, and it was interesting because she had, at least the impression that I got from RC more in the show, in that third season of the show. In the movie, she didn't get to do too much. She was just kind of like there, kind of like along for the adventure. But in the show, she got to be more of like a mother figure to Daniel, and you got to see her protective side and see how capable she was. And so this really felt like an extension to that. You know, a capable, strong warrior wants to protect things. So I really liked RC in Prime. She was really good. But I probably would say Arachnid is the Prime waifu as far as from this particular show. I don't know. I like, who would be top overall? Well, man, that's a conversation for a whole nother stream. We'll save that for a whole nother stream. So anyway, but yeah, no, RC was awesome. Now I do, since we're kind of talking about the main characters here, Bumblebee, RC, and I'll get to Bulkhead next. These were the ones paired up with the humans. We just touched on animated. Originally, Bumblebee was going to be Hotshot, and they said, no, let's make him Bumblebee because the movie focuses on Bumblebee. And if you think about it, well, why did the movie focus on Bumblebee? Because that's the character who ties in with the human. That's our whether we like it or not, because me personally, I'm not a big fan of human focused stories when it comes to sentient alien creatures. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna have like a Godzilla movie, I guess he's kind of sentient, but he's an animal. You know what I mean? So he's not gonna have dialogue. You got to have humans in there. Whereas Transformers, they're completely sentient. They can speak to each other, have their own character. Why do you need people at that point? You know, if you look at certain other animated movies, even if they're more geared towards kids, still though, in the medium of animated film and TV, they have other movies and shows that are completely animals or completely trolls or fairies or whatever it may be. You know, some fictional thing. And it's fine there. Why can't we have complete robots, right? Why can't we have nothing but Cybertronians? That's just my personal thing. Maybe a human every now and then is fine. But for whatever reason, the studios have always believed that the audience needs humans there as like an avatar. They believe that we see the human characters as like as our avatars in the show. That's how we relate to being in the show. And that there may be some truth to that, but like I said, I think I relate more to the personality, to the characters of the whatever they may be, whether they're Cybertronians or gargoyles or you know whatever we're talking about that's not human. I can still relate to them through their personality, their characteristics, you know, what they fight for, what they believe in, what makes them happy, what makes them sad. That's what I relate to, not what they look like. So that's why I never really got the whole, well, yeah, you need a human in there because it's how the audience is going to relate to these giant robots. Like, no, I'm going to relate to these giant robots because I get pissed at the same things they do. to put it simply, you know. That's really what it all comes down to.
Did somebody say pissed? Hey, are we bonding? Did we just become best friends? Do you get angry too?
Get out of here, Optimus. You're too angry. You're angry enough for the both of us. I don't need to get angry. I don't need you making me angry. So, but yeah. So they had human characters here. This show was no exception. That they had the idea that, hey, we need some human characters, but at least they handled it pretty well, rather than it being one human character, because that's the one thing that I think has been a flaw. If you want to make the argument that, okay, well, some people do relate through the human characters, so it kind of needs to be in there. Get over the whole robots only thing. There's going to be people, get over it. Okay, I can concede that because some people might need that, and it's a personal preference of mine at the end of the day. All right, I'll concede that. But that being said, why are we always just given one human avatar then? You know, talking about as recently as Transformers Animated, sorry Sumdac. That's really all we got. And there was her dad, there was Isaac. Well, yeah, but he wasn't the one we were really meant to relate to. He was the one getting played by Megatron. I mean, do you relate getting played by a giant evil head, robotic head? You're supposed to relate to the kid that thinks these robots are cool because you think they're cool too, and you want to be their friends and everything too. So we're really meant to relate to Sari. And if you find her annoying, if you don't relate to her, if you're for whatever reason, you're kind of out of luck. And that goes all the way back to G1. You know, the only time I think they had only robots and no humans was Beast Wars that I can remember in recent memory, because the Unicron trilogy had human counterparts. Robots in Disguise 2001 had that little boy, and Ty looked like a person, although she was just an AI, but still it had human counterpart. Beast Wars is the only other one I can remember that didn't have a human counterpart. But yeah, you go back to G1. And it's usually just one. You get one character, and if you don't like that one character, you're kind of out of luck. So this one was pretty interesting. They gave us 3. They said, all right, you get Jack, who's typically Cyberverse had humans but never really saw them. See, that's good. See, that's why I need to go back and finish Cyberverse, I was talking about that because TF Prime mentioned it here at the start of the stream and said how he was kind of wanting to get some more figures from Cyberverse. And I said, they're pulling an animated. They're getting better. I need to go back and check that out, especially if they use their humans sparingly. And it looks like the upcoming show on Netflix, Transformers Siege. It looks like that's going to be human free as well. So anyway, but back to Prime. I'm getting way off topic here. Way off topic. I mean, I guess it's all Transformers, whatever, but meant to be talking about Prime. But so what they did here in Prime is they gave us 3 human avatars. They gave us Jack, who is more like your classic one. And, he's the adventurous one that befriends the robots and kind of wants to, get out on his own, do his own thing, finds out about the Transformers, befriends them, wants to help them out, go on adventures with them. That's like your classic style one. Then you had Miko, who is more like the wild. She reminds me of the younger demographic, even though it seems like, I don't remember her exact age. I don't remember any of their exact ages, but it seemed like she was closer in age to Jack than she was to Raph. But she did seem like she was geared towards the younger demographic, the more hyper, excited demographic. And then you had Raph, who, even though he was the youngest, he might have actually been meant to appeal to the oldest crowd. And you might be like, what? What are you talking about? He was like the little kid in glasses. He was the little nerdy kid. How is he meant to appeal to the oldest crowd? Well, hear me out. So Jack was, like I said, Jack was the standard, default adventurous one, and really, he had a little bit of a rebellious streak to him. He would kind of go against his mother's wishes, or even in some cases when Optimus would tell him, no, you got to stay behind, it's too dangerous. Well, he wanted to go along to help him. So he was a little bit of a rebel, headstrong, right? Which is why he made a good partner with RC. And you have more of that in your youth. When you get older, you kind of settle down. You don't really do that as much. You think things through more. You look at things more logically, and you try to figure out, if you see something, you see it as like a puzzle, and you want to figure it out. That's what Raph did. Raph, despite being the youngest, you could easily say was the most mature for his age. Jack pretty much acted his age. Miko certainly acted hers, if not younger. Raph, however, acted older than his age, and he would look at things as like a problem to solve them, and would not rush in headstrong, and would try to figure things out. And even though he was paired with Bumblebee, which is classically like the kind of youngster Autobot, and for me being an older fan, like I'm not in my teens anymore or anything like that, so it's like being an older fan, Bumblebee kind of gets on my nerves in the live action movies. But in this one, Raph was like his translator. He was the only one that could really understand him and would translate him. So yeah, he really felt like he was this older soul amongst the 3 characters, despite being the youngest kid. So I honestly think that Raph was meant for the oldest audience to relate to go, okay, yeah, I can. He's trying to figure stuff out. Yeah, that's how I would behave. I would just want to know what Bumblebee say. I don't want to hear all these beeps and boops. I just want to know what he's saying, and I'll just tell the others what he's saying. And so, like I said, Miko would be for the youngest audience, and then Jack would be for the teens. So it was really cool. It was really cool that they gave us the selection of human avatars to relate to, and didn't make them too grating. I know some people found Miko annoying. I've already gone on my whole thing about how I'm not a big fan of humans being too involved in Transformers stuff, but it was nice that they gave us this selection, and it was another breath of fresh air. Oh, okay, now we've got a couple of them, and sometimes it'll focus on Jack, sometimes it'll focus on Miko, sometimes it'll focus on all 3 of them. Plus, I do want to talk. Let me get the big lug up on screen here. There he is. There's the big boy. He's a big boy. Miko and Bulkhead, their relationship, I think, is what put Miko over for me. Because I'll admit, I did kind of find her annoying in like the first episode or 2, but she quickly grew on me because of her relationship with Bulkhead. Something about them, it was like this big brother, little sister kind of thing. He was always looking out for her. She was getting into trouble, but she had a good heart and everything. She wasn't a brat, She had a good heart. She wasn't like a piece of crap. You know what I mean? So Miko really actually grew on me, and she ended up being my favorite. I just said Jack was for the teenagers, Miko was for the kids, and Raph's for the adults. But Miko was kind of my favorite just because her character kind of endeared. It was like, I guess I almost started relating to Bulkhead and seeing her as like a little sister. So she was kind of like my favorite human character, and I like her style. You know, she's a rocker, right? You know, I like metal, I like rock. You know, she was a rocker. Always talk about heavy metal, playing air guitar and stuff. You know, had the colorful hair. So Miko really ended up being my favorite out of the humans. So, you know, Transformers Prime did a lot of cool stuff like that. They did a lot of stuff right. They did a lot of stuff right. I mean, we talk about the design, the voice cast, all this stuff. Everything they did really, really well. And I mean, we haven't even talked about any specifics when it comes to plotline stuff. I mean, you guys know that stuff. There's no point in me sitting here reading the plotline to you, reading a synopsis to you. You guys know it. You've seen it. This is why you're here, because you love it. I just want to geek out, right? I just want to geek out and say, you know, have you thought about it this way? We all love it already, but if you think about it this way, you might love it a little bit more, right? It might just make you love it a little bit more.
It looks like this guy has been stealing my nachos. Look at him. He can't even deny it. You can't deny it, chat, that he's been stealing my nachos. How many years ago was it that I ordered Bumblebee to go out and get me the biggest plate of nachos with extra cheese, no matter the cost? Now I know why I never got them. Because of this tubby guy. I'm got my eye on you.
Take it easy, Optimus. Go get some water. You're starting to sound like Wolverine. Get some water or whatever Cybertronians drink. Energon flavored Gatorade. Or in your case, Haterade. Either way, get off the screen. This is Bulkhead's time to shine. The Transformers Prime Optimus was a lot nicer than you. He was like one of the nicest, friendliest Optimuses aside from G1. That's another thing about this one. We talked about Bumblebee getting his voice back at the end. We talked about getting more than one human avatar, and you know, a nice change of pace there. Let's talk about we talked about the designs. You know, how we got a return to classic, chunky, colorful designs. Let's talk about also Optimus. Remember, Optimus was being turned more and more bloodthirsty every Bayverse movie. It started out with him just being pretty brutal in the fight, you know, in the first one. And then in the second one, he's all about getting faces. And then he just starts ripping limbs. I mean, by the third or fourth movie, he's just ripping things apart needlessly. He's probably leaving them alive. I don't even think he's killing some of the more recent Decepticons. He just wounds them and lets them bleed out in pain. He just becomes so brutal. It's ridiculous. So they put a stop to that in Transformers Prime. They said, you know what they did? They figured it out. They figured it out. Those flames, the flames on Optimus in the Bayverse movies, that's what was making him evil. That's what was turning him bloodthirsty. What made him slowly and gradually want more and more blood and energon. Well, no, and blood, because he was even threatening humans. Remember that little dude? Well, I guess they're all little to the Transformers, but you know what?
He's like, I will kill you and take your face.
Well, I added that part, but you know, he probably would have. I think it was because of the flames. I think they warped his fragile psyche and made him cold-blooded. So when they got those flames off of him, they returned him in Transformers Prime to his roots. All the way back in G1. Do you guys remember G1 when he would like play basketball? do you guys even remember? Is it too far removed in the era of Bayverse films and bloodthirsty Optimus to remember when he was playing basketball? Or when he would make stupid comments like,
"Whoa, a booby trap that actually captures boobies."
See, this was a return to that Optimus. He didn't say anything quite so silly. Well, unless you count like some of the some of the one-liners like
Megatron, be gone, thought.
so but other than that, he didn't say anything too silly. But he was a lot friendlier in this one. It felt like the Optimus that I would actually want to look up to, that I would want to be friends with. Like how I mentioned before about how Jack was kind of the rebellious one, wanting to run in and help, even if his mom or Optimus himself advised against it. But that's because he believed in Optimus. He believed in his cause. He believed in what he was fighting for. That he was there to protect Earth and protect his friends, his family, basically. And this is the Optimus that I would want to follow, that I would look up to and go, yeah, that's my hero. That's my buddy. Like if he existed, I would want to be his buddy. Whereas the movie one, the one in the Bayverse films, if he's not spouting some grand speech, he's pretty freaking pissed off. I don't know that I would want to be his friend. I don't know that I would want to be hanging out with him. Or looking up to him like, yeah, he's my hero. He's this great role model that I look up to. I mean, it'd be like, yeah, the Decepticons were wrecking. I was about to say something. The Decepticons were wrecking stuff, so it was good to have him around. To kick their butts and get him out of here. But now he won't shut up, and if he does, he's gonna hurt somebody. So I'm kind of glad to have the friendly Optimus back. This show once again does something really, really right by bringing that friendly, heroic. I mean, it's not like Optimus was evil and a villain, but when I say heroic, I mean a role model, someone you could look up to at any age and go and get inspired. Go like, yes, this is a character that I want to be like. I want to have the integrity and be compassionate and have the strength that he has. All those good qualities that the Bayverse one is kind of lacking, or at the very least they get muddled. The good qualities of the Bayverse Prime get muddled in his insanity and his violence.
Yeah, you're just a wuss. Give me your face.
I figured Angry Optimus would like the Bayverse one.
Yeah, you're lucky I don't have flames on me. Can you imagine if I had flames? I'm already pissed.
I don't want to know, dude. I don't want to know. I don't want to see Angry Optimus with flames. That's like Angry Optimus going Super Saiyan. We don't need that. All right, so I've talked a lot about the Autobots. Let's talk about the Decepticons, because I only really touched on Starscream briefly, mostly to talk about Steve Blum. But let's talk about the Decepticons here. Because I've already been going about 45 minutes, and I wanted to keep it more about half and half. So, oh well, there was a lot to cover in the intro, and I'm also trying not to lose track of the chat too bad. Although I think I've missed a lot. So sorry, guys. Now there is a link if you feel like there's something that I've completely missed in the chat because it's gone by. I do have a link to Super Chat. $1, and it'll pop up on the screen there for me, and that way I can definitely see it. But that's just if you feel like it. No requirement. I appreciate everybody watching. That's really all I need is you guys watching, hanging out, having fun, geeking out about Transformers. If you're having fun, just hit the like button for me, and that'll make me happy. All right, Kelvin, man, thanks for hanging out, buddy. Miko, she was just there. Yeah, Lugnut. Oh yeah, Alpha Trion. See, that's the thing. This show had a lot of callbacks too. They brought in George Takei to voice Alpha Trion. That's another one of those where, like The Rock, I don't want to call it stunt casting in a negative way. I'm saying stunt casting in a way where you wouldn't normally associate him with voicing a Transformers character, kind of like Leonard Nimoy. Yeah, he was Spock. He was doing a sci-fi show, but didn't really think he'd be voicing in Transformers. So yeah, it was really awesome to have George Takei play Alpha Trion. Very cool. Very cool. So with the Decepticons, they stick to the same thing that we were getting with the Autobots, and that's the I say blockier. The Decepticons were a little bit sleeker, which was cool because thinking back to the Autobots, they were usually land vehicles, and the Decepticons are typically air vehicles. So of course they're going to be more aerodynamic, more streamlined, because it'll make it easier for them to move around in the air. But so when I say blockier, they still have more rounded edges and curves to them, but they have more of that density that the live action ones were kind of missing with all the part pile look that they had. And so the Decepticons carry that over as well, especially Megatron. Megatron is just a beefcake. He's been hitting the juice, and I absolutely love his design. This might be my favorite Megatron design ever. It's really easy to say, oh no, G1, you know, because that's where it started. But this is the one that I just think looks the most threatening. It looks like this is the one that looks like a character who has come up through gladiatorial combat. You know, if you're familiar with Megatron's backstory, especially with the one that they give him in the aligned continuity. One of the reasons that I did a couple of streams leading up to this one that purely was discussing the aligned continuity, because, you know, for one, there was a lot to cover, so that's why I had to break it up into two, but also was to build up all the backstory so we would know about these characters once we get into the show talking about Transformers Prime. And see, that's the thing, is Megatron has this backstory established in the aligned continuity of coming up through gladiatorial combat and, you know, in the pits of Kaon, you know, and just being this ultimate badass. And this design, this form reflects that 110%, you know? And that's not to say that his G1 design looks weak or that any of his other designs necessarily look weak or anything, but they were too clean, they were too polished. Even if you had given them battle damage, they looked too refined, you know, like a really luxury starship. You know how he had those sci-fi modes in the Unicron trilogy, like a sci-fi tank and that weird ship thing that he turned into an Energon. But they were very high-tech looking. This looks like, if you recall from the aligned continuity, or if you were watching the previous streams, then you'll remember Megatron came up through the mines. He wasn't even called Megatron. He was just originally designated with a number, D17 or D16, one of those numbers, and he was just thrown into the mines. And this looks like a form that was built up through work and through combat, and now he's very menacing, intimidating, and it's, I don't know, there's just a lot of character to it. I love it. I absolutely love the design. The face, it's hard to see in this picture here because, you know, it's a full body, so his face is kind of tiny up there, but he had that scars and wrinkles on his face, looked like he had been very weathered, you know, had seen a lot. And the red eyes and the sharp teeth. I mean, it was a beautiful design. It was beautiful in how terrifying it was. That may be a strange description, but it was beautiful in how terrifying it was. And I absolutely would have to say that this is my favorite Megatron. And then the fact that Frank Welker returns to voice him once again. But see, in real life, you know, this show, when did this come out? 2012, something like that. This show was 25, 30 years, something like that, after Frank Welker originally voiced Megatron. So I love the G1 voice, it's great, but you can tell he's putting on a cartoon voice. But you fast forward, and just the way humans age and people's voices get a little deeper and a little raspier as they get older and stuff, the way he put on the Megatron voice, it didn't sound like somebody putting on a cartoon voice anymore. You know, you go back to the old G1, ripped out your optics. It just sounds like somebody's pinching their throat. You know, they're doing a voice. But this one, you know, I was raised in the pits of Kaon. This one sounds like someone who's real, and it adds to that threat level, that level of intimidation, and the imposing nature of him. So it was really great to hear. Everything just came together in this package, this total package of the greatest incarnation of Megatron. And not just the look and the voice and all that, but he was actually a competent villain. He was cunning, intelligent, strategic, and of course powerful. Very strong. So he wasn't like this bumbling 80s villain like the Shredder from Ninja Turtles or his G1 counterpart a lot of the times. He was very competent and very capable of pulling off these schemes. And if the Autobots didn't fight tooth and nail, chip and shard to defeat him, he would have pulled off his schemes. And in some cases he does to an extent. He doesn't get all the way, but he gets really close. He gets really close throughout the series. It's what makes him such a great villain. You don't know if he's going to win. You don't know the stakes. And that was another thing about the show in general too, is talking about the stakes. They killed off characters. We talk about the stunt casting and the Rock voice and Cliffjumper, but he didn't last long. And it's a shame because I love The Rock. I'm a fan of his. And the Cliffjumper character seemed pretty cool, and I liked his design. He had a great figure that came out in that first edition wave. But there was a reason they did that. There was a reason that they did that for everyone. And it wasn't just to shock you. It wasn't just to go, psych, bait and switch. You thought The Rock was going to be in here, haha. It wasn't like a troll or anything like that. It was to let you know, even if it was just subconsciously, it was to let you know there are real stakes in this show. We're not playing around in this show. You remember that third season of Transformers Animated where Blur gets killed? It was either the end of the second season or beginning of the third, but Blur gets killed off. They weren't afraid to kill characters in that. Well, I don't know if Blur's killed because I think they say he came back. But my point being that they did that to establish in the audience's minds, in their subconscious and in their minds, that hey, this show has stakes, has real stakes. Characters can die, and it's not just going to be they'll be fine because nobody's going to die at the end of this episode. So I don't got to worry. I don't got to tune in. No, you got to tune in. You got to watch because you might come back next week and somebody's gone. Or somebody's very, very much different. Remember Ultra Magnus? You miss a few episodes, you come back and he's got little hand. His little claw hand. His strong take my little hand. My other hand's not strong enough. Take my claw hand. Yeah, you might be like, what? So yeah, or how about that time where Megatron had one of the primes, the 13 primes arms, so he could wield the Forge, and or had the Dark Star Saber. I mean, you really had to keep up with it, and they showed you the stakes were real deal. I loved it. It was great. Late 2010. Oh wow, even earlier than I thought. I think Fall of Cybertron was 2012 because I remember the games and the show kind of occupying the same space and time. But I think War for Cybertron was 2010, and that's when the show would have come out, and then 2012 would have been Fall of Cybertron, which was a great game. Yeah, you want the horns? You got them. Yeah, it was great, man. I would have loved to see more of that character, but like I said, he had a purpose. He served a purpose. Optimus even died in animated, either the end of the second episode or the third, trying to protect the Allspark from Screamer. Yeah, that's right. See, animated was good. Animated was I hate to rhyme, but animated was underrated. Anyway, so back to talking about the Decepticons here. So yeah, this is one of my favorite, if not my favorite. I think I've already kind of said hands down, it's my favorite Megatron. And we got some pretty good figures of this too. There was a deluxe figure that came in a 2-pack with Optimus that was pretty nice. And then there was a Voyager figure that was probably the best Voyager from that wave, because there were a few issues with the figures being hollow around the time of Prime, and just 2010, 2012 in general. The figures were going through some changes, and they were, I think, trying to reduce manufacturing costs, and so we started getting a lot of hollow stuff. But this guy didn't suffer too bad. His Voyager was really nice, especially if you did a little custom paint job to it, add a little extra metallic silver and stuff, because the molding, there was actually molding in the plastic to reflect gradient texture in the metal. Like, it was this weird, I don't know how to describe it, but it was freaking awesome. And if you painted the thing, man, it was beautiful. So Starscream had one of the most drastic redesigns. I mean, Megatron, I think the colors were the most different thing, and the spikes and stuff. but he was still this big silver robot. Whereas Starscream gets like a very big redesign, but it completely worked for him. I mentioned early in the stream about Steve Bloom voicing him, and I was almost concerned at first because I'm like, wait a minute, I know Steve Bloom. He does these low raspy characters. How's he going to do Starscream? But then he comes in, he's like, I am Starscream. So it was great. It was great. And it fit the design perfectly. I love how there's this evil face. It almost looks like the head of a snake. If you look, let me see. I'm not sure. I don't think that my cursor shows up here on the screen. But look at the center of his chest. Have you ever noticed? Some people might have already noticed this, but have you ever noticed it looks like the head of a snake, like a viper? You can even see fangs where his rib cage would be. There's a fang sticking out to the side, and the two little tips in the middle would actually be the tongue, like flicking out, and you can see the eyes there, and it's like the head of a snake, of a poisonous snake. And if that doesn't say Starscream, what does? Right? I don't know what does. If that doesn't say Starscream, I don't know what does. Having a poisonous snake, it like embedded in the design of your chest. But yeah, he was really cool. I like the little spindly legs and clawed hands. It was a nice touch that they changed what have traditionally been his null rays on his arms into missiles to actually fit with the jet mode. So that was really cool. And let's see. Well, I'll leave that up there a little bit longer because I want you guys to. I want to see in the chat. Do you guys see? Have you seen that snake head in his chest before, or is this new? Can you see it? Kind of curious. Starscream had those heels. That's right. Yeah, I'll catch up with the chat real quick while because I know there's a delay. Megatron killed one of the Secret Twins without any prior notice. Yeah, just gone. Sari does her walking Deus Ex Machina stuff. Yeah, when it was revealed that Sari was had Cybertronian DNA or CNA or whatever they were calling it. She was attacking Starscream. He had a reason, and yes, she shot him with his cannon, Dreadwing. Okay. Prime figures. If you didn't get the first edition figs or Japanese exclusive figs, the Prime RD, Megatron, Dreadwing, Skyquake, Shockwave, and Ultra Magnus were good. Yeah, in fact, I had about half of those that you mentioned. I had the Megatron and Shockwave and Ultra Magnus. I didn't get the Dreadwing Skyquake mold, but it looked good. I had some friends that had it. It was good. Yeah, Steve Bloom was a very treacherous. His voice ended up fitting perfectly for that. Yeah, he actually impressed me. He was one of the standout performances in this amongst all the big names, classic names. I would say that he was one of the standout performances just because I wasn't expecting it. You wish Charlie Adler could have done more with his Starscream? Yeah, you know what would be nice is, you know, with this whole multiverse craze that we got going on right now, you know, into the Spider-Verse and having a multiverse with DC, like in the comics. You know, everybody's pulling crossovers in the comics with Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles, all sorts of stuff. So it would be cool if we had a multiverse storyline, maybe in an episode of Siege or something, where Armada Starscream shows up and they get Charlie Adler back. That would be cool. Steve is in it too as background. Let's see, even before that. All right. Oh, there's okay. You noticed the snake head before? Yeah. Okay. So a couple people noticed it before. Awesome. Awesome. All right, so Soundwave was another one that got a huge overhaul in his design. I think it seems like they kind of, well, no, because RC was pretty well overhauled in her design as well. But like Optimus was a truck, Ratchet was an ambulance, Bumblebee was a sports car, you know, Camaro looking type thing. So the Autobots didn't get quite as heavily changed as the Decepticons, whereas Starscream is like a whole new look, Soundwave's a whole new look. Megatron's not a whole new look, but it's pretty different. I think the Decepticons got a little bit more. I don't know if it's more love or just that they had more time, but they got more of a overhaul when it came to their designs, which is fine. It makes them stand out. I just sometimes, like with Soundwave, for instance, I didn't know it was Soundwave right away. Like if I had just seen a picture of this, I'd be like, okay, who's that? You know. So, but it was cool. It ended up he was this awesome character. Never spoke until the end. He had like that one line, and it was the classic Soundwave voice. Frank Welker even did it himself, and that was awesome. But he was talk about capable villains. I would say Soundwave was really only second to Megatron when it came to powerful Decepticons, threatening Decepticons. I mean, even Arachnid tried to overthrow him, say, no, I'm going to be the boss when Megatron was MIA. Soundwave shut her down real quick. Real quick. But I'm glad that he still had Laserbeak. It obviously it's going to make sense that they're not going to be cassettes, that he's not going to be a boombox. But it was interesting what they did, making him like that drone, the flying drone plane, and then Laserbeak being this weird folded up armor on his chest. But at least he still had Laserbeak. It actually makes me wonder if there were other minions, would they be different parts of his body, or would they exist somewhere else? What would they look like? Because Laserbeak looks really weird. It looks like this little origami, like folded up piece of paper. There's not really much space, because especially once Laserbeak detaches, there's not really much left of Soundwave to produce any more minions. But just because of how much of a redesign that he and Laserbeak, as well as all the other Decepticons for that matter, got, I would love to see the other, like Ravage, Rumble, and Frenzy, especially Ravage and Ratbat, like the other animal looking ones, I think would be really cool. Yeah, Predator drone. That's what it was. It's called a Predator drone. Thank you for that, Lugna. Omega says you kind of like Soundwave way as talking as everyone. You don't like that he didn't talk. Yeah, see, for me, I was such a fan of the old voice just because it sounds cool, with that effect on it, that I was bummed that he never spoke, because I want to hear that effect. And at least he had it when he finally talked. And it almost kind of makes it's like a mixed bag, because you finally get to hear him talk, you're glad that he has it, but then you realize, wait a minute, if that's the voice they were going to go with, we could have been hearing that the whole time. So now they did put the effect on the voices that he would replay. When he would replay something that another character said back to Megatron, they would put the same vocoder effect on it. I thought that was a nice touch. But yeah, I do wish, I would agree with you, Megas, that I prefer the speaking Soundwave with the awesome sounding voice. But he was, I think we can all agree that Soundwave, nonetheless, even without much to say in this series, and a drastic redesign, he was still superior. He was still second only to Megatron. Yeah, the Viacons are cool. All right, there's a couple though. There's a couple of characters we got to touch on real quick before I wrap up the stream. And that's Knockout and Breakdown. And Knockout is glorious. He's this character that I never thought I would like, because at first glance you just think he's the typical, like, oh, this is the cowardly yet evil, because Starscream is usually cowardly yet evil, but the Transformers Prime Starscream is he's a little more bold, and he's willing to work on his own, and not, he kind of wants to overthrow Megatron and rule, but when it doesn't work, he just goes off on his own. Whereas Knockout, my first impression was like, oh, that's the character he's going to be, minus the attempted usurping of the crown. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to try to overthrow Megatron. He's just going to be that cowardly villain who is there, and maybe just for comedic value or something. I don't know. Like comic relief. I don't know. But then he turned out to be the Decepticon version of Trax. Do you guys remember Trax from G1? This Autobot. He was a blue,
I believe he was a Camaro or like a Pontiac Firebird or something like that. But he was an old blue. Well, I say old just because it was like 80s, whatever. But he was a blue sports car, and he was an Autobot, but he had Knockout's personality almost identically. They're both obsessed with their paint jobs and looking clean and looking fresh and all this kind of stuff. And it was Trax was always one of my favorites because of how kind of stupid he was. And when I say stupid, like not like intelligence, like stupid, like why is this character here? Like why do we have a character who he just cares about his paint job? Like, oh, I just had this waxed. Watch the paint job. Like it's funny, but like why is he here? Why are you even here, Trax? So he kind of I guess you could say I like him ironically. I don't know, but to me he's just funny. He just was the most pointless character. He's so stupid, and so he ended up being kind of one of my favorites. And so when I come to find out that Knockout is basically the Decepticon Trax, and he's like, "Hey, watch the paint job. I just had this waxed." It's like, oh, hey, different voice, but same guy. He's like instant favorite. Instant favorite. It's like, why are you here, man? What are you doing? And you're a car. You're a car. Like all your other buddies. All your other buddies are jets, spaceships. Why are you a car? You know, I know Breakdown is a car too, but see, Breakdown's his bro, right? But like, it was so funny. He's Decepticon Trax. He's Decepticon Trax. Which then makes me want, talking about crossovers, you know, having Armada Starscream show up. I want G1 Trax to bump into Knockout and them start talking about, you know, they like literally bump into each other so they can say like, oh, hey, you scratched my paint job, you know, and then Trax, you mean you scratched mine? Why are you worried about yours? That's my gimmick. Knock out, more like knock off. So yeah, I think that would be amazing if the two of them bumped into each other, and then of course Breakdown would show up to split them apart. Break it up, you two. I don't remember what he sounded like, to be honest. I don't know why I just did like a G1 Galvatron, like who disturbs my path. That's not what Breakdown sounds like. Anyway, so yeah, him and Knockout. I almost called him Knockoff. Him and Knockout were really fun characters. Kind of stole the show when it came to the Decepticons as far as characters go. Steve Bloom, I think, stole the show performance-wise. Frank Welker and Peter Cullen, of course, knocked it out of the park. But these guys, when it came to characters, when it came to actual like characters that, and especially like when Breakdown meets his demise, the Hands of Arachnid, I was actually kind of pissed at Arachnid. I was legit pissed at Arachnid the way that she dealt with Breakdown in his last moments. And then man, Breakdown pissed somebody behind the scenes, like must have not liked that character, or maybe somebody who created Breakdown pissed somebody else off, because they not only does he get ripped apart by Arachnid here, but then they're like, well, let's have Mecha or Mech or whatever. I think it was just Mech. Let's have Mech rebuild him as like a zombie and put Silas in his chest. It was like zombie cyborg Silas. It was a mess. That's all I know. It was a mess, absolute mess. But in a good way. I mean, you know, I'm not talking trash. I'm saying like it was brutal, and it actually made me mad at Arachnid the way she, you know, killed him, because I liked him, and I was kind of wanting to see Knockout get some revenge for him, you know. But to be honest, Arachnid would probably kick his ass. I hate to say. That though, after talking about all these characters, because I've been going a little over an hour here, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this stream. I did say way back at the beginning that I was more than likely, it was like 99% chance that I was gonna split this into 2 streams, just because I know there's so much to talk about. Plus, at the end, I want to, and it may just be that I devote the entire next stream to talking about Galvatron's Revenge, the fan project that continues the story beyond the Beast Hunter arc. In fact, that's what we'll do. Next week, next Tuesday, Transformer Tuesday, we'll conclude this whole aligned continuity Transformers Prime story arc. And what I'll do is I'll begin with the Beast Hunters story, and we'll discuss that when the characters that got their redesigns, like how Optimus got an upgrade, the Predacons, Predaking and the rest of the Predacons that were revealed during that story arc. We'll discuss them, kind of geek out over them like we have been over the characters and stuff during this one. And then that'll be the first half of the stream. And then the second half of the stream, we'll talk about Galvatron's Revenge, which picks up right after the events of the Beast Hunters arc and brings in new characters into Transformers Prime like Galvatron, Slipstream, Cyclonus, Scourge, as well as the Combaticons and Bruticus. So it'll be a lot of fun to talk about. Even though it's a fan project, they're doing their best to make it look as close to the real thing as they can using Blender and other 3D animation programs. I'm not familiar with all of them because that stuff's beyond me. I just do a few of the voices, So we'll talk about that next week, along with wrapping up this, and then that'll be it for Transformers Prime. Wow, I mean, there's more to talk about, of course, don't get me wrong, but this has been quite a journey. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you had fun. Maybe you learned some new stuff, although mostly what we did was just kind of geek out, in which case I hope you had fun doing that. Kind of revisiting Prime, going back and looking at some of the designs, discussing the voices and stuff. It was just, it's always good to look back, and especially this one. Transformers Prime is such a treasured show. So I hope you guys had a good time. Thank you so much for hanging out. Lugnut, Omegas, Artisan Prime, Gamma, Soundwave, Spencer. There's so many names I can't remember. I'm sorry about that, guys, if I leave you out. T-Fanpage, Kelvin. So I appreciate everyone for hanging out. Smoke, Teletran. Hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you're not already. And there is a link to the Discord server if you want to continue the conversation in between streams. We have a lot of fun discussions in the Discord server, as well as some game nights and just hanging out, listening to music. So it's a good time. So join the server if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. This is Orbital Bacon signing off.